Hello, it's Katy here, just giving you a brief introduction of what you're going to hear today. This is a relatively unedited conversation between me and my sister Dana. If you've been following this show for a while, you know that last year, around March, my sister Dana, who's the oldest sister in the family, 6 years older than me, she was diagnosed with a glioblastoma, brain cancer, two different tumors, and we've been on that journey ever since. And she's appeared on this show quite a number of times, and a lot of you have expressed your interest. Not only that, your admiration for Dana and her approach to this very scary diagnosis. And some of you have sent letters in support. A lot of you have donated money in support of Dana and her family, and I can't thank you enough for doing that. Your interest and your support in all of these things means so much to her and so much to me. And I think this is a really special conversation. I think it's a special conversation that people need to hear, even if they're not facing some sort of devastating diagnosis. I think a lot of what Dana talks here is pretty useful for facing any kind of change in day-to-day life, or even in how we could reshape our thinking to make sure that the things that we value the most in life, the things that we enjoy the most, the things that we want to be, are actually front and center in our lives. And so I really want to encourage you that if this show resonates with you, if it seems particularly meaningful to you, or if you can think of someone in your life, or maybe multiple someones, who would really benefit from hearing some of these ideas, I really want to encourage you to share this episode of the show. Open an email and send it to a few friends saying that you really feel like they would enjoy it, or make a social media post about it. Whatever you do to share shows, I think this one's really important, and I think it's really interesting. And I would love to have it have a bigger reach than the audience that already listens to this show. So if you end up listening to it and thinking about your own life, or thinking about it in terms of the lives of some of your friends or family members, don't keep it to yourself. Spread it around. Let's spread some of this wisdom around. I would love to see it stretch even further into the world. And with that said, I hope you really enjoy this episode, and I hope that you get some insight from it. Enjoy! Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katy Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell. Tiffany is away this week, but I am joined by my sister, Dana Zoller, a longtime guest on the show now, and fan favorite, quite honestly. If you've never heard her before, go back and listen to some of Dana's appearances in the past, because we're going to get into kind of in a very interesting way of thinking that she has that I want to share with all of you, and also talk more about with her. So Dana, bring us up to, yeah, you feel free to say hi, sorry. So Dana, bring us up to speed really quick on how you're doing, and then we'll get into our larger topic.
Okay, so if this is the first you've ever heard of me, I'm Katy's older sister, and I was diagnosed about 15 months ago with glioblastoma, two brain tumors, stage 4. And if you don't know anything about glioblastoma, that's great, and I hope you never learn about it. But it is a very difficult cancer to be successful treating. And so the fact that I'm still here and chatting and doing decently well is awesome news. And what's been happening recently is that the medication that I was taking for, I went through I have two tumors. One was removed, then I went through some radiation. I've been on chemo in monthly cycles, and that was going to sort of keep going as long as things were stable. But what started happening about a month ago was that I started having some eye trouble with my left eye, and some little seizure-like thing. Not seizure. We now know that they are seizures in my left eye. They presented like a migraine aura, zigzag line, and anyone who's had a migraine will know just what I'm talking about. But then it was also doing this weird thing where after that zigzag line, I would lose my ability to perceive things on that side. And
Mm.
so, and it was explained to me that sometimes after a big event like that, which now we know they're seizures in my eye, then the body is resting and it's recovering. And so it stops working normally until it's had time to recover. And so that was explaining why I couldn't perceive anything on my left side. If I turned and looked to my left, I could see. But if I was trying to use my periphery, I couldn't see.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Hmm.
that indicated, so that happened 2 or 3 times, and we let my doctor know. But I luckily, a week and a half later, I had a regular appointment scheduled with a regular MRI. The MRI revealed what we had sort of suspected, which was that the tumor had started growing back, but instead of growing the way that it had been before it was removed or radiated, it was growing down further into the brain, which was why it was impacting my vision. And
Hmm.
so that changed the trajectory of my treatment. So I was no longer going to be doing chemo. Once things start changing, they go in a different direction because what they had been doing is no longer effectively working. And so it happens to be that at UCSF there was a clinical trial that was available to me that I was a candidate for. I'm not going to get this right. I think it's called the G90 Frontier Study, something like that. I don't have it quite right. It has a much longer, complicated name. It's a 5-year study and it's been going for about 4 years. So I'm getting on in the tail end. And what it is doing is checking whether or not this way of approaching delivering radiation to the tumor site is safe and effective.
Hmm.
And so what they do is they go in through an artery and they weave their way up through your artery up from your leg all the way up to the brain, which in and of itself sounds incredible to
Insane.
me.
Yeah.
um,
It's a bloody
smaller,
miracle. Yeah.
I know, right, exactly. Anyway, and then they find the tumor site and see if there's enough space in that area and enough access to the tumor itself to be able to deliver a little package of radioactive radiation beads, which are these micro, the width of a hair, these
Wow.
beads. And so they deliver, instead of doing radiation that goes through healthy tissue, it just delivers this like little package of radiation beads directly on top of the tumor. And the trial is less about how effective is it, although that's part of it, and more about the technique of getting this up there and delivering it and
Mm.
being successful at you want as much coverage as possible.
Hmm.
So last week I had the procedure to see if I was a candidate. Luckily, I am. I'm now officially part of the study. And so I go back in a few days. In fact, we leave tomorrow.
Yes, as we're recording. Yeah, this is
Yes,
eminent. Those beads
as
will
we're
be in by the end of the
recording.
week. Yeah.
Yes, they will be in by the end of the week. Yikes. So I go back and have the actual procedure and then spend the night in the ICU,
Yeah.
etc., where they monitor this and that and the other thing. And then I guess they send me home. And then I have to go up once a week for, I think it's 4 or 5 weeks, where they do cognitive tests and there's another MRI somewhere in there, etc. And they keep on monitoring at different intervals.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now. It's sort of experimental, but
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see.
Makes me think of two things. Were your kids into the magic school bus? Wasn't the magic school bus where the kids thing where you get on the school bus and you shrink down and you go through all the arteries and you like learn about
Yes.
that's sort of like what it
Yeah.
feels like they're doing. They're like getting into that artery and taking the bus up to
Yes.
your
They're taking the bus up to the tumor site and then looking around.
yeah.
And then they're going to drop off some stuff and then head back to school.
Like
So,
toxic waste, yeah, basically.
yeah, right. Exactly.
And it's my understanding, as much as I wish otherwise, that this is not considered a cure for you necessarily.
Right.
This is a what does it mean for you specifically? Besides that, it helps the research.
It does help the research and future patients, but they said in the people that have participated in this study, which I'm only the seventh one at UCSF, there's only been 20 in the whole country because it's
Wow.
only performed at 4 universities, hospitals. So I'm lucky to get in at all, but it gives, they said for the people that get really good coverage, they are kind of stable, like radiation would give you stability or chemo would give you stability for up to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, you know, that's better than letting it just grow wildly out of control, which is what it was starting to do, why
Yeah.
my eye was impacted and all that. So we'll see where it goes, and hopefully it can help some other people, and
Yep.
we'll take
And
it from there.
yeah, I guess. Hopefully you get a great 6 months and then they come up with another thing that gives you another great 2 years and like another
Yeah.
thing that gives you a great 5 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my sister's
I
hope, of
do
course.
wish that I was eligible. The university, UCSF, is not involved with any clinical trials right now that are immunotherapy based,
Mm,
which this is where I think, I mean, I am not an expert at this at all, but I'm assuming that's where the future of medicine is going, is teaching how to find techniques that the body teaches itself to repair itself instead of poisoning everything until it dies. Um,
right.
but, we'll see. Well, take whatever, it's such a difficult cancer that whatever we can do to give people some extended time is great.
I mean, I
So,
understand from Sarah, our sister, our other sister, and maybe this is wrong because I have not done the research, but part of the problem with the glioblastoma is that the body, she tells me, doesn't seem to recognize it as a threat.
no,
I don't know
I
if
guess
that's
I'm
true or
not
not.
sure. I don't know. It doesn't seem to, it just seems to be able to grow,
Like as it
you know,
wants to. Yeah.
as it wants to, without the body stopping it. So I guess that could be one way of describing it.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I
Not a fan of glioblastoma.
no,
Yes,
really,
well,
really bad. Really not a fan.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of the update. So it was
Although I will say, just as a tag on to you saying that, um, I will say that I had a nurse that was very formative to me very early on, right before my original surgery, but within 3 days of being diagnosed, who told me to talk nicely to my tumor and to
mm,
say to it, I know that you're doing your job, which is to grow as fast as you can. But now it's time to relax. It's okay. We've got it taken care of. You don't have to work so hard. It's time for you to, chill now. And, we're going to help you get to a different place, different location.
we're gonna
Going to
move
take you
you
out.
on.
So anyway, that worked for me, being like, okay, it's just doing what it was programmed to do. Who knows how it got there or why.
Hmm.
Let's be nice to the tumor and tell it it can calm down now. And, so anyway, I thought that was sort of a cute way of thinking about it.
Yeah, we'll keep that going. I mean, the other thing, and I don't want to get too far afield, but another thing we were talking about on the phone the other day was how where other people might feel very angry about the fact that the tumor was there, and part of her like speak nicely to it is because other people would be like, "You screw you, you stupid." Yeah,
I can't
uh,
believe this is happening.
I
And
can't believe, but you were telling me that you've never actually been angry about it in any way.
no, my a therapist, I see a therapist weekly, which I recommend for everybody for any reason. But
Right.
that's a side note. She was asking me last week, have you ever gotten upset, angry, mad about this situation? I assume because it's one of the stages of grief is anger. And I just told her, I'm like, I understand it's a stage of grief. I understand why you're asking that question. I just have never felt angry about it. Maybe that time will come. Maybe it won't. I'm not a person that gets angry other than about like injustice. That makes me angry. But
Mm.
when I think about certain things in our society that I'm upset about, then I can get angry. But I have never felt angry about this situation. We're all humans. We're all going to die from something. This is no one knows why people get glioblastoma. Some do, some don't. Where they have some inkling about other cancers, there's really no indication about why some people get this disease. So, it's like, okay, well, we'll just move on then. I mean, it's sort of a useless emotion. So, and I don't tend toward anger anyway, so it's
Yeah.
easy for me to
I
easy.
mean,
I can understand why people would get angry. So it's not an indictment of people that get angry, but I just haven't felt that yet. So maybe it's coming.
yeah. Well, one of the things we wanted to talk about, going back to that same therapist, is and we've talked a little bit about this on past episodes, kind of way back at the beginning of this whole process. We introduced hope and constance to our audience. Perhaps you missed that episode, but we're going to delve a little bit more into hope and constance and their new
The rest of
friends.
the troop.
They're new friends, and and kind of get to that because your therapist was saying like I mean, tell me what your therapist was saying and we'll introduce who Hope and Constance and the rest of the crew are.
Well, the reason that Katie and I are talking about this today is because I was sharing with her that a week or two ago I was telling my therapist about the koalas that I imagine in my brain. And I have from the beginning. And you all can imagine a koala sitting in a eucalyptus tree, and you probably know that eucalyptus leaves are all they eat, and they're actually poisonous to the koalas, which is why they're so sleepy all the time. They eat the poison, then they fall asleep, and then they wake up and they're hungry, so they eat more, and then it is a cycle. So I figured they're cute and adorable. They sit in these little, I'm imagining them in my little brain stems,
Yeah, in the curves. Yeah.
sitting in the curves of the brain up in their tree, and they're eating the glioblastoma. They're also able to tolerate the radiation just fine. They can tolerate the chemo just fine because their bodies are wired to sort of endure that sort of thing. And then they're also, obviously adorable. And my husband has stories from when he was in Australia, seeing them and getting to hold one back when they let you do that, and
That's
things
cute.
like that. So there's some stories about them. So that's what we're talking about today, apparently, are the koalas, because it just started with one or two, and it was four for a long time, but now we're at 12.
Yeah,
So
well let like as a baseline, how did that help you like at the very beginning imagining the original two koalas, which were Hope and Constance? The original two, how did it help you imagine by imagining them there? Like why does that help?
I was given a stuffed animal by, can't remember,
So okay.
uh, early on, and it was like a mother koala holding a baby koala. And so I knew for me, they were very calming images. And
Mm-hmm.
Matthew used to, when I came home from having brain surgery to remove the tumor, he turned on just on the TV while I was sleeping most of the time. But when I woke up, there would be just a quiet scene of koalas in their trees that someone had made like a YouTube video about for an hour of looking at live koalas living their best lives or whatever. So it became a symbol to me that was really calming.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of thought I wanted to do some mental work because it's worked for me in the past about instead of going to fear-based things or uh, the idea that, desolate thinking, I wanted to turn that around to more positive things, kind of like led by that nurse saying, talk calmly to your tumor.
Mm-hmm.
It's not its fault, and all this sorts of stuff. So
Right.
I thought of this stuffed animal that someone had given me, and I thought, well, let's pick a couple things, and I'm just going to name them, and I'm going to give them names that remind me of things that I care about when I'm thinking about this
Hmm.
diagnosis and what I'm sort of going through. So, Constance, her name, it really could be consolation. And that's this idea of choosing consoling things versus things that make you feel desolate. So consolation versus desolation, instead of being freaked out, scared, panicked, and all that about this diagnosis, I leaned into the things that made me feel consoled. I have access to health care. I have a supportive family. I'm able to take a leave of absence from my school. I had things in place that were making it an easier journey than other people might have experienced. And so I thought, okay, we're going to call her Connie. She's going to be, Consolation, Constance, we're going to call her Connie. And she's holding this this is where the stuffed animal comes in. She's holding something else. So what could that be? And so I named the baby Hope,
Mm-hmm.
thinking at the beginning, maybe you're not sure how much hope you have, but maybe as this baby koala grows, you have more and more hope and things like that. And so that's where the koalas started.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was Connie and Hope for quite some time. And I would do some meditation, loosely. I use that word loosely, where I would just be thinking on them. And if I started feeling inside like I'm starting to get that anxious feeling, like I have to have another MRI, I haven't done one of those,
Mm-hmm.
um, I would think, no, let's not go to desolation. It's, lots of people have MRIs every single day. It's, generally safe for most people. They're going to look inside and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I would use these images of the koalas to help my brain get in the right space, the space where I wanted it to be, that was hopeful and also consoled. That's
Yeah.
where it's.
Like on a total side note, I think your other strategy with the MRI is worth sharing because, a lot of people who have gone through MRIs think of it as, including myself, as a very claustrophobic experience. But what was your strategy for kind of avoiding that?
I don't know if this is what you're referring to, so you can add on, but I have never once opened my eyes. And so I lie down on the table, which is not inside the tube, and then they get all situated and ask me a bunch of questions, put in the IV, and I just close my eyes. And then until they pull me back out and tell me it's time to sit up, I just have my eyes closed and I'm breathing and I'm counting my breaths, just sort of get my mind onto something else. I'm thinking about the koalas. Now there's a lot more koalas, which I'm sure we'll get to, but it expanded out from those two. So I think about them. Sometimes I sing a song. So is that what you were referring to, or do you had something else in mind?
Yeah, no, that's what I was referring to. But I remember in the early days that you would even enter the room with your eyes closed so that you didn't
Oh,
even know what the machine looked like.
yeah. If Matthew would say, well, what does the machine look like? I'm like, I don't know. I look at the table. I know what the table looks like that you lie on because they'll just say, here's, come and lie down. It's all pretty quick. I mean, they're trying to get people through there. So there's not a whole lot of hemming and hawing. So, and so I look at where I'm supposed to go and I get situated on that. Then they're asking me questions about how's your head is comfortable and this and that. And you're just staring at this bright light. But they have to wheel you backwards into what is the actual MRI machine. And I've never opened my eyes. I'm like, I don't want to have any reason to add to what I'm already feeling about this experience. So I
Uh-huh.
don't want to feel classified because they blow sort of this cool breeze on you and they put a warm towel over you. So it can be very like you're just at the spa.
Yeah, you're just
So,
yeah, a
I've
very
only been to a
loud
spa a few
spa.
times,
Yeah.
but yeah, right, a very loud spa, which makes lots of crazy noises. Um, but yeah, so it goes with what we're talking about today. Just my thinking has been about what consoles me, not what I'm worried about.
Okay, so let's talk about the expanded crew of koala bears. Now, you don't have to necessarily say what order they came in on, but
Okay.
if you do know, feel free to put them in order. And how does
Well,
it come to be that you decided to add more bears to the Hope and Constance duo?
it was almost, I wanted to think on more things. I was thinking for a while a lot about feeling consoled and having some hope. But then I was like, there's more that I care about besides those things. And so it just kind of has naturally, the troop has naturally just sort of grown. Other koalas have joined the brain stem tree or the brain tree. Um,
Yes.
and so quickly, soon after Connie and Hope, came faith and joy. And this is where things start sounding like if you're someone who celebrates Christmas and there's an Advent wreath with candles, you will
Yes.
recognize, hope, faith, and joy. You know what else is coming. But I grew up with a faith orientation, and that's still in my life and still important to me. And I wanted to keep that sort of at the forefront of my thinking. And I also didn't want to lose the joy that I typically have in life just because I was going through serious things.
Hmm.
And a lot of interactions that I was getting from other people were things like, oh, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. I'm praying for you, and all the things that lovely people say to be supportive. And I'm not dismissive of that at all. But there was no one that was like, I'm so happy this is happening to you. I bet you're experiencing lots of great things. But I was experiencing new and really interesting things. And I wanted to sort of lean into that I can still have joy in this situation and that I should be looking for opportunities for joy, even if I'm exhausted and I'm sleeping 5 hours a day on the couch. When I'm awake, my kids are fun to be around. I have dogs that I really love. I have family members that I like to chat with. So there are, even looking outside, I live in a really pretty place. And so just having the joy of, wow, I'm in a really cool place. So wanted to lean into that.
Mm-hmm. What's an example of one of the new things that, like, when you say all these new kind of cool things were happening too? Is something popped to mind?
Well, the fact that I wasn't working.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
I had a job, I've had a paper route since I was 10, and then I never was without a job. And
Yes.
I was a music teacher for 33 years, and that was, a lot of work. I loved it, but it was exhausting, and it has a very rigid schedule. And I had 600 students, and, it was just a lot. And so one of the greatest joys was being at home on a weekday not working. I was
Yeah.
like, it was very weird, and there were some hard moments, and it wasn't an easy transition, but it did become something that I enjoyed. I'm like, oh, I get to know the mailman.
Yeah.
Great. And now when I know him now, when he delivers packages and, stops by. And so that was something new. And I was able to start volunteering at the food pantry that's connected to my church that serves the unhoused people in our community. And so that was a great joy of being able to actually, I used to have to think about my philanthropy as working with children with music, trying to use music as a conduit for changing their lives in either emotionally or whatever. Um, but now I could actually volunteer for things, and I had time to be able to do that. So a couple
Mm-hmm.
examples.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. All right, well, let's pause for a moment and take a quick break.
Want to spend a week in Rome with Katy and me at a time of year the city is less crowded, less hot, but just as wonderful as you imagine it? Now's your chance. The first week of November, this year, 2026, we are taking an intimate group of listeners to Rome for a week of beauty, discovery, and pleasure. After our 13 plus years hosting this podcast, which at least partially is about Rome and based in Rome, and my 20 plus years of working as a tour guide here, it's safe to say we know this city. And Rome is a city that is worth knowing well. It has so many incredible layers of history, art, and beauty to peel back, and we want to share that knowledge with you, our listeners, and maybe even inspire new passions that you will nurture and deepen long after our trip is over. The vast majority of people who come to Rome barely scratch the surface of what this city has to offer. And this trip is different. There are only 8 rooms available, and 4 of them are already gone. So if you'd like to claim a room or just chat with us about it, get in touch. You can email us at bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com, and one of us will get back to you personally to answer all your questions. Or you can visit our website, thebittersweetlife.net, to find any additional information. We can't wait to take you to Rome.
All right, so do we move past the Advent candle? I'm trying to think of like what is the fourth Advent candle now?
Well, it's love.
Oh, it's
So,
love, right? Okay, I'm like,
yes,
what is it? I could not think of it
that's,
off the top of my head. Okay.
yeah. So, I thought, okay, great. I've got Connie, hope, faith, and joy. Awesome. Love is missing because love is a huge thing in my life, and I'm very thankful for the fact that my life involves a lot of it. And so I that's where love dug. It happened to come at a time where one of my aunts sent me this humongous, very round stuffed animal koala that was very pudgy and just looked like you could just sit on top of the whole tree and just kind of sit there eating the delicious leaves
Yes.
and just remind everyone, hey, he's got a look on his face like, I love you, everybody. You're so awesome.
Yeah, and he's kind of the most pillow shaped, like you
Yes, he
could,
is.
he's like a big round ball, basically.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
is very soft and very squishy and just kind of like you can just imagine him sitting up there going, love is all that matters, guys. So anyway, I call him Love Doug, and so he was. And then for a long time, it was just those 5.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I'm now up to 12, so we don't need to take as much time on each one of these.
No,
But
no, we can. Okay,
uh,
so who comes next?
who comes next is Gladys, who
Oh.
is she's around gratitude, feeling grateful, being glad, Gladys, for the things that you have in your life, and really focusing on gratitude as a means of not only the reality of my life, which was it was so full of things I was grateful for, but also that had been something I hadn't taken a lot of time to really lean into before when I was, really busy. And it's something I care a lot about, how lucky I've been, how grateful I am for the experiences I've had. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where Gladys came from.
I like that.
Yeah.
And so it's just as a reminder to be grateful, to reflect on like what you have. Is that like on a
Yes.
day-to-day thing, or is that like what I've had over the course of my life, or all of it, all of the
All
above?
whatever comes to mind in the moment. If I think about Gladys, I can come up with 100 things. I mean, if you start writing down, people always say, "Oh, write down a few things you're grateful for every day. It'll help your life." So I've done that, and I'm like, how can I stop? Like, I could just keep writing like all day. There's so many things.
Hmm.
So it's everything you just said. It can be
Mm-hmm.
past, it can be present, it can be totally random weird things like I'm really glad that this IV isn't hurting my arm right now because other times it's been poking me and I couldn't move my arm and I'm so glad that it's not happening right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it can be silly things like that all the way to really poignant things. I'm really thankful for, my children, my family, my husband, my that I live in a house, that I'm not outside, that I
Mm-hmm.
have access to health care. So there's just so many things.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Who's next?
So Sid is next.
Sid.
Sid. And his name is like an acronym, which is, I go back and forth because neither one really works well, but is strength in Dana
Mm-hmm.
or strong is Dana. And Sid came about when I was having some more significant side effects from chemo and radiation and things like that than I had had previously. And I had to remind myself that each time I felt something different, either in the unsteadiness of my walking or that I was completely losing my short-term memory and I was just like, I can't remember anything, which is pretty common from, these treatments. I would just I needed a reminder that I was strong, that I still not only strength of spirit, strength of body, strength of mind. You are a strong person. You've learned the tools on how to endure, how to persevere, how to rise above. And so Sid is someone I tap into him when I need a reminder that I am strong, which
Mm-hmm.
I used a lot last week when I was having this procedure and knew I was going to be intubated and unconscious for 4 hours and they were taking something up my vein to my,
Yeah.
to my end of my brain. And I was like, Dana, you are strong. You can do this. They wouldn't be suggesting this if they didn't think it was going to go well. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think on him all the time, but I think on him anytime I have a physical or emotional or mental challenge. And I think you're strong, Dana. You can do this. I have enough background in my life where I've had to learn that. And
Mm-hmm.
whether it be athletics or divorce or can't find a job that suits you or whatever, if you just keep persevering, you will find your way through and you're going to build up some character and some skills.
Mm-hmm.
So it reminds me of that.
I should ask, does every single one of these guys have a physical stuffed thing to go along with them? Or
Yes,
they do. There are 12 physical things.
there are 12 physical things. Most are stuffed, some are not stuffed. Some are crocheted and stuffed. So one is a little, someone gave me a whole bag, I think it was Matthew maybe, bought a whole bag of like 50 clip-on mini koalas and that he
Ah,
clipped all over the house,
okay.
So none of them they all kind of collectively are one of them. I'll tell you, I'm getting to that at the end,
Yes. Uh,
where a bunch of them are sort of representative of one concept. But
okay, okay. Well, since we just talked about what Love Doug looked like, what does Strength and Dana Sid look like?
Sid looks a little wonky here. I'm going to show Katie, but he looks more like a cartoon.
Oh, okay.
When you look at him, you might not think he's strong, but
Mm.
he is. He's still part of the troop. He's up in the tree. So,
I love
he
that.
might look different, but he has his skills.
Right.
So,
I mean, when it comes to this strength, like this is an ever fluctuating situation you're in. And so
yeah, yes.
you do have to be able to adapt to it in a lot of different ways, a lot of different strategies, both like physical and mental. So,
Yep.
all right.
Yeah, and I assume he'll become something I think on more as things begin to deteriorate when they do. So we'll see. We'll see how that
Yeah.
ends up ends up going. But
All right. So who's next?
George is next.
Okay.
And George is named after Curious George.
Okay.
George reminds me to keep curious about the world. So
Mm.
if I hear a bird noise, it kind of comes with wonder. I could have also been like wonderment or,
Mm-hmm.
awe. Just learning new things. I had to learn how to, type differently because my left hand wasn't doing the right thing it was supposed to do. So I was curious. I'm trying, instead of being, I'm so frustrated, it's like, or getting scared about what's happening, I try to approach it with curiosity. I wonder why I feel that sensation on my leg, instead of being like, oh my God, something went wrong. But also the wonderment of the world. I try to, when I'm walking my dogs, I try to take time to stop and look at something that I'm curious about. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been really interesting. And then we had a hummingbird build a nest in our backyard. And so I spent a lot of time like just watching her and being curious, like how, and then I was looking things up on the online, like how many eggs do, hummingbirds lay and how long do they incubate and how long does it take. So just sort of approaching the world and or things that I might react to with anger or with fear or with judgment, maybe being more curious about it. I wonder why that person behaved that way.
Hmm.
I wanted to have a reaction that was more visceral and more frustrated, but instead, there must be a reason. I wonder why they're choosing to say that right now. Or
Mm-hmm.
so just a reminder to be curious. So that's George.
Were you typically a curious person in the past, do you think?
I don't think I ever leaned into it. I think I had curiosity as a child, but I will say that I lost that along the way. In adulthood, I was the main breadwinner. I was, leaving home at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, getting back at 5 p.m., dealing with large numbers of students, which if you're a teacher, comes with a lot of communication with families and a lot of grading and a lot of this and that and the other thing, a lot of student management with different anyway, so along the way, I was very task oriented. Here's what needs to get done when I get home. Here's the errands I have to do on my way. Here's this and that. And so I was more geared to how efficient can I be? And I got really good at that. I got
Yeah.
really good at being efficient, but there wasn't a whole lot of time for enjoyment or wonder or curiosity about the things that I was having, around me,
Mm-hmm.
which is too bad because I used to have that as a teacher, and I still had it toward my students that were challenging students. I was curious about what's their background, why are they making that choice. But it was never from a joyful standpoint. It was never from a sense of, wow, this world is full of really wondrous things.
Mm. Yeah. It was always like a how do I manage this situation
Yeah,
standpoint.
right. Hmm.
Wow. Interesting. Okay.
So it's been fun to lean into that, to rediscover that part of my personality that lay dormant for a while.
Yeah. So not only like wonder in the like wow sense, but wonder in the wondering about things
Yeah,
sense.
I wonder how, any time now that I have a thought about, I wonder, I mean, I don't even know, whatever. Even what you come across in a news story, as we're recording right now, there's a woman rowing from California to Hawaii. And a lot of people might be following her on social media and think the first woman to row solo. And so I have a lot of questions like, I wonder what kind of food is she eating? How does she stay not getting sunburned? So anyway, it brings up a lot of
Mm-hmm.
questions. And so I try to lean into, let's find out. Let's do some research and
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's sometimes it feels like when you have a disease like cancer or something, it feels like that's all you ever get to talk about. Do you feel like that? Like, or like that's if you see friends, they want to talk about it. If you go to the doctor, you got to talk about it. Every time you did anything last week through this procedure, you had to tell us all about it. Like you had to update the family. Sometimes you have to update the family one at a time, like Katy, then Sarah, then mom, then dad. Like
yeah.
um, and so in a way I one thing I've always thought like is that at least for my life when I think like oh what if I get a disease, it's like I don't want my life to be reduced to that disease.
Yeah, right.
That to become the
Yes.
story about my life, and I'm
Yes.
sure you feel the same way.
So I do talk about it a lot and mostly, and I try to lean into the gratitude I have for that because most people are checking in because they care and they want to know what's happening, which is
Yes.
why we post. So if there's anything changing or going on, we have a Caring Bridge post. And thankfully, that's where most people get the news because we try very hard to keep that updated and share things and make it sound personal, like we're actually having a conversation with you, although we don't always achieve that. But it is nice to think about other things, to wonder about other things. When I have those conversations, when I'm connecting with someone, they want to hear the short, I'd give the short version, which I get pretty good at about the latest updates, or, oh, it's all on Caring Bridge. If you want more information, you can go there. But generally,
Mm-hmm.
2 sentences about how it's going. And then I can ask them about them.
Yeah.
What's going on with you? I'm curious about how you're doing. How are your kids? Or how was that project you were told me about last time? Or did you go somewhere on a trip? So curiosity helps with that. It reminds me you can ask other people about themselves. So that brings, I'm glad you brought that up because I do talk a lot about it because people care and it helps me in my own processing. Like I have to remember I'm not trying to live in a la la land where this isn't happening to me. It is. And so I try to stay grounded in that.
Mm-hmm.
But life is really boring when all you're talking about is like what's happening to your body. So it's a
Yeah.
lot more interesting. So try to remind myself to be curious.
Yeah. Okay. So George. So moving on.
March. Yep, we got 4 more if you're
Four
counting.
more. Wow, it's a
Uh,
big troop.
it is a big
I
troop.
feel
I
like they
know.
should be able to take care of this tumor without these radioactive beats, but okay. Like, all right.
Yeah, I know it grows really fast, and they're kind of slow animals.
They are kind of slow. That's true.
Yeah. Next is Penny, which stands for Penny for Your Thoughts or thinking. It's basically, it doesn't really work. It's just that the name Penny, I was trying to be more clever with some other thing, and I kept coming back to Penny. So I'm like, fine, your name is Penny. But it's really about prayer. It's about prayer. If someone tells me about, I have a very good friend whose mother just passed away yesterday,
Mm.
as an example. And so my thoughts were on her yesterday a lot. And sort of, penny for your thoughts, if someone said, what are you thinking about? I'd be like, I'm thinking about my friend whose mom has been ill for a while and she passed. So there's sadness, but there's also relief. And that might be what my future looks like for
Mm.
my family. They might feel sadness and some relief, when this whole thing is over. And so Penny is just about prayer for anything that comes to mind and any thoughts that I happen to have. Penny for your thoughts. So if I'm thinking about someone, I try to turn it into a prayer. It doesn't really make sense the way the other ones do, but
I
it's
mean, it
how
makes sense. It's like
yeah,
rather than having diffuse thoughts, and your friend keeps popping into your head, it's like taking a moment to be
yeah,
like, I'm thinking about this person.
yes, right. Give that some time and space and reflection. And I do sometimes feel as though I'm thinking about someone and then literally 5 minutes later they text me. I feel like that's not something that, I mean, maybe it's totally random.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not. Maybe there's some connectiveness somewhere out there.
Yeah.
Thinking about
Okay, so after Penny, we've got
after Penny, we have Phil,
okay.
and Phil is short for philanthropy or ways that I can give back to the world even now.
Mm.
I used to think about that a lot through donations, monetary donations that I would make, or the work I did in my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my outlet sort of for philanthropy. And I really, as I've mentioned before, didn't do a lot of volunteering. We didn't have the monetary resources to make giant donations and things like that. And so I would do what I could when I could.
Mm-hmm.
But now, my philanthropy, I'm able to volunteer at the food pantry, as I mentioned, and I go out. And now, when you see the people coming to the food pantry, and you see what they're choosing off the shelf, and you see that they could use a new T-shirt. Then now I know when to go to Goodwill on Fridays when everything is only $2.50 for a certain color, and you go and I just take $200 worth of T-shirts and shorts if it's summertime and take them to the food pantry. And then I watch, with joy as people are going, oh, I love this shirt. And they're picking all the stuff. And then the next time I come, it's all gone. So it's philanthropy can make a person feel good, but you're also doing good in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
so Phil is how can I be philanthropic? And sometimes it's just reaching out. Yesterday, I literally went through almost every contact in my contacts list and sent a minute-long video to everybody just saying hi and how are you, and I've been thinking
Oh,
about
wow.
you. And I was doing it just because I knew they'd been following things from afar, didn't want to bother me and ask questions, but wanted to feel a connection. And so that felt to me like a version of philanthropy. Like, here, I
Mm.
care about you and I'm reaching out. And so it can be literally things like a food pantry or buying clothes for people, but it can also be reaching out, finding ways to add to the world. That the world needs a lot. So what can you add?
Yeah, I love that. And because I remember early in the early days when you were starting to realize that you were probably not going to be going back to work, and
Hmm.
because you had forged a career where you felt like you were helping people every day, like you were helping these kids, and you had, so many kids that kind of relied on you for their joyful class. And I remember how much of a loss you felt in those early days about, like, well, now what? Do I just not give people anything anymore? Like, all the kids are
Yes.
no longer in my daily life anymore.
Yeah, I had that feeling a lot. I still feel that when I think on that because I was lucky enough to be able to see and feel the impact that I was having. Not everybody gets that in their career, and I certainly didn't feel it every day. I can tell you that for sure. But overall, when I think back about my career, I feel like not only was I exposing kids to the joy of music, but also community, because a lot of music-based stuff in school is community-based. You're doing it together,
Mm-hmm.
but also connecting to their emotions, also connecting to hidden talents that maybe no one else had recognized that, come to the forefront. There's just so many ways that you feel like you're making a difference for kids. And then when you're putting on programs and the families all come and they're loving it, and so so you're right. When that was gone, there was a huge loss for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm glad to have found other ways to feel philanthropic or to feel like I'm adding goodness to the world somehow.
Yeah, you're still contributing.
Yes.
You're not just a sickness. Again, going back to that concept, you're not just
Yeah.
like in the fight, quote unquote.
Yes.
You're
Right.
doing stuff still.
Yes.
And we're going to take another quick break here. Remember, if this is resonating for you and you can think of people in your life that would really get something from Dana's ideas about creating your own koala bears, your own creatures, your own ideas to center your life around, please share the show with others. Back in a moment. And we are back. Another reminder, if you'd like to receive this show and never hear another ad again, join us over at patreon.com/the Bittersweet Life podcast, where for just $3 a month, you can receive ad-free episodes every week. For $5, you could also receive bonus episodes every single month. Patreon.com/the Bittersweet Life podcast. Link is in the show notes. Now back to Dana.
Yep.
Okay, so who's after Phil? Down to our last
Uh,
two.
Down to our last two, we have PAX. And
PAX.
PAX is
PAX.
yep, and
Mm-hmm.
that's Latin for peace. And so it's just
Mm.
thinking about peacefulness of heart, of mind, of this process. I'm sure I'm going to lean more into PAX as I start to when and if, I mean, I say if, but when my body starts to begin the process of sort of shutting down, that I'm probably going to lean into that because that's going to be challenging. The first time
Mm-hmm.
I fall or the first time my vision disappears on one side or whatever. I don't think peace is what I'm going to think of first.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm just reminding myself, and some of it goes to my faith, I mean, all faith traditions have some aspect of tapping into the peace, the greater sort of universal peace that we're all going to pass away. We've all joined this world and we're all going to pass. And so if you can somehow, which is a struggle, find peace with that, there can be some beauty in that sort of process. And I'm not pretending at all that I feel peaceful all the time. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I need a koala to remind me there is peace. Peace can be found in this situation.
Yeah. I mean, you were even telling me once that, how we often hear about people talking about their near-death experiences. You hear these stories all
Yeah.
the time, and what do you hear is when people talk about near-death experiences, they talk about, oh, it was so fun. I got to see my old relatives. I got to see, it was so beautiful. And, whether or not that's actually happening or a trick of the brain, I guess. You told me once, you're
It's
like, sounds kind of fun. I mean, really,
yeah.
like,
Well,
so,
and it's kind of irrelevant whether or not if it's a trick of the brain. I mean, that's pretty smart of a human body to be like, hey, if you're in the process of dying and it triggers for you wonderful things, I mean, that sounds great. You know, um, my phone, I guess, has heard my conversations because I get a lot more stuff that pops up about near-death experiences than I did before. But many of the ones I've heard just add to my consolation because it's most people are saying I wanted to stay. I didn't want to come home. I didn't want to come back to the world. I was very much at peace and I felt really comforted and loved and connected and
yeah.
yeah.
I always think of our grandmother, Aileen, who not only, like, as she sort of started getting toward the end, she started also having really, really beautiful dreams overnight at
Hmm.
night. And I remember her telling me about one, and she said, "Oh my gosh, it was such a fun dream. It might have been one of the most fun dreams I've ever had." And I was like, "Well, what was happening in it?" And she said, "I was just young, hanging out with my girlfriends, and we were running through tall grass and short skirts." And I was like, "I love that image. We
I
were
love
running through
that too. She
tall,
probably looked good in the short skirt too.
yeah, tall grass and short skirts, because it does feel good on the legs. So,
Yeah. If it doesn't feel itchy,
yeah,
I
if it
would think
doesn't
that
feel
would feel
itchy, I
itchy.
guess. Anyway, all
Um,
right, so we're down to our last
our
koala.
last one. Yep. Cece.
Cece.
And s-
CECE.
no, just C period, C period,
Oh,
capital
okay.
C. CC, which stands for community and connection.
Hmm.
And a lot of the things I noticed as I was reflecting back are me thinking in my own head about myself and how I'm going to approach this and that and the other thing. I'm like, there is something missing. What is missing here?
Hmm.
And kind of goes hand in hand with my career of music is a collective thing. And it finally dawned on me, it's community. I don't have a reflection about making sure that I'm connected to my community and reaching out to people, staying connected, telling people, here's what I remember about our interactions from 20 years ago, and it meant a lot to me, and I just wanted you to know. Or thinking about the community, the broad, it could be micro and it can be macro, really
Mm-hmm.
any level. I don't need to give every example, people get it. But my church community, my friend community, my family community, staying connected with people from the past, being open to, even though someone might say, I can't believe you are making new friends. I'm like, well, why not? I might not only have 6 months, but like
Uh-huh.
still it's interesting to meet new people. So let's try to do that. That's not something I've been super comfortable with. So I've been challenging myself a little bit to go and chat with somebody. And
Yeah.
so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just a matter of trying to stay connected to your community because it can be, and I'm sure it will be, and people that have lost a parent or a friend or a sibling or anyone in their life will know that it becomes more isolating the more you deteriorate. Your body starts to deteriorate or your mind, and it can be really isolating. So trying to keep the community gates open,
Mm-hmm.
even if I start to lose that, I've already set up something where my kids know that they can call people in our family or they can call my friend, and that community will continue. Hopefully, they will still feel connected and not isolate. We hope to, we've even talked about where to put the hospice bed. Oh, I think we're going to do it in the living room so that whoever comes over it'll be easy for me to chat, or there's plenty of the room for the dogs to come up, or yeah, I can hear the bustling of what's happening in the kitchen and in the den. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're actually making decisions based on this idea of not being completely isolated just because your body is taking on a
Mm-hmm.
different form than it used to. Because there's a lot of things that go with the body that you don't necessarily want people to see, and or that people are embarrassed by, or and I probably will still feel that same way, but I don't want it to isolate me from the people that I love. And
Mm-hmm.
so, uh, anyway,
Yeah, I mean,
Cece.
currently you can't even sit down without having a dog right next to you. Like the minute Dana sits anywhere, there's like a pig pile that happens. So
Yes.
just
They follow me everywhere, which is lovely.
she
But
has
my
3 small dogs and 2 cats, so it's like a full menagerie.
yes, one cat doesn't really care where I go, but the rest of them they'll follow they'll follow me around.
Yeah,
So
that's a that's quite a group. Do you imagine that there will be any more koalas becoming part of the crew as this goes along?
I have thought about that, but I really think, unless something profound occurs to me, I think that anything else I think about probably falls under one of these other categories. And I can just kind of have it slot in with one of the names I already have. And part of that is because 12 is a nice number. I've always liked the number 12. And also that I don't know, to be honest, it's hard for me to already remember all 12. And so I don't necessarily want to add more. 12 just feels like a good stopping point. It feels like I've covered most of the bases and I can slot it in
Well, I'm
somewhere else.
guessing from what you said that if we talked about the look of CC, she is all of those little clip-on koala bears.
Yes,
She is a
she's,
diffuse koala. She is
yeah,
everywhere.
I'm looking for one right now to show you, but they're very tiny and they're little, it's one of those like little things you have as a kid where you pinch the side and the arms open and then
Yeah,
you put it on something and you let go and it closes. So they're kind of all over the house. So yeah, it feels like let's just end it with 12.
yeah. I like that. I like that. So just to finish up, when you were telling your therapist about all of this, what was her reaction to all of these koala bears?
Well, typically I wouldn't say this to a broader community, but she was just saying to me, "This is so amazing that you do this on your own. So many people struggle so much, and this is where we try to lead them, and you're telling me about it." And it's exactly, these things will be helpful too. It's the kind of thinking that we want to encourage in our, people. So I was like, first of all, surprised by that because I know that there's a lot of work I can still be doing with my mental, health. But she also said, you should really consider turning this into some sort of book or illustration or something because I work with so many children and I have throughout my career where I was once, she worked in a children's hospital working with children who were going through treatments and all sorts of stuff and was helping them with their mental health. And she's like, this is the kind of thing that I would have been such an amazing resource. I wish that I had this in a book form with your koalas and with their, they all have names that match something that they can be thinking about. And maybe the kids would develop favorites so then I had never, that had never occurred to me. So now she's like, you should reach out to your sister who's the author and, who has a podcast and maybe kind of just think about this idea because maybe it could grow into something that you could, because I'm always saying to her, I wish there was more I could do to help, I don't know, legacy is kind of the wrong focus, but like contribute something to society and through this process. And so typically I would just say, oh, I'm not looking for that kind of validation. But now I'm like, well, maybe she's right. Maybe there's something here that could be useful. It helps me.
Yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
like thinking about these cute, cuddly koalas. So I'll have to give it some more thought. And she was kind of just saying there's so much that could be done here. There's a lot of rich soil that could really be helpful for other people.
I can totally see it. It's, just a matter of like, how is it put together? And maybe people listening have ideas of like what else they'd like to see as it, like maybe it's a different idea entirely. Maybe it's like a
Yeah, maybe
kid's
it
book.
is. And
Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else.
I think I went to kids just because I could see it being useful in an elementary counseling setting because I watched so many of my students in their trauma trying to make it through, their little lives. But I think I'm not a child, and it helps me all the time. And so I think it could really, and people could choose their own animals and their own names and, just the idea of reframing the experience to be something that is life-giving instead of something that is traumatic. It's going to be traumatic regardless. And so let's add on another layer of something that's more hopeful.
More fun. More joyful.
And
Go
yeah,
ahead.
and more, just centered. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Our father also used this in an early, when he was first diagnosed with brain cancer, like what, 15 years ago or something?
Yep. Hmm.
Different type of brain cancer. But he, not that you necessarily got your idea from him, but he sort of put together his cancer is sort of diffuse across his whole brain, like little, they would describe it like as a bread mold, if you can picture like a mold growing across something. So all these like little specks. And so he started picturing it a team of border collies, and that all the specks were sheep that had gotten out of the fence, and were like scattered across the fields. And for him, the mental image was the troop of border collies come in to wrangle it together, to bring them back into some sort of form that could be handled, basically.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of just another example of the same trick of like, how do you come up with these ideas that you want to keep remembering, but make them not like, okay, what's my burdenful list of things I need to remember and do,
Right. Yeah. And I think they had names. I think he and mom named them also. I think there were 7. So
Yes.
I think visualization can be a really helpful tool.
Yeah.
And I probably did get it. I did remember dad's, border collies. I'm sure that played a part in me having this idea. Maybe someone else had the idea and I ran with it.
I mean, and
So,
you've like not only imagined it, but you've spent time actually going and looking at koala bears doing their
yeah.
real thing in the real, not like in Australia, but like,
No. At the San Diego Zoo.
yes. And
Yeah.
dad went out to a farm and watched border collies actually wrangle up sheep, almost just as like, now I'm interested in koalas. So now I'm going to like actually spend some time
Yeah.
looking at them. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love that too. All right. Well, we should leave it there. And
Yes.
thank you, Dana, for all of that. And if you do have any ideas, if you listening, I'm talking to you, of like how you would like to see the koala bears like come into the world as a different form, besides just a concept that you can put into your own lives, feel free to send suggestions. You can always write to us at bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. That's bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. Give us your ideas too about how we should bring this further into the world. We would love to hear it. All right.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Dane.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.
And until next time, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
And I'm Dana Zoller.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
If you want to connect with Dana, you'll find a link in the show notes. Please do share this episode with people in your life that you think would really benefit from some of these ideas. And if you've never heard the show before, or you're not currently subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Check out the back episodes of the program. There's a lot of great things back there, including more Dana. Send your ideas, your thoughts, your questions to bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you're interested in coming to Rome with us November 1st through the 7th, 2026, you can get details at thebittersweetlife.net, or just ask when you send that email, and I'll send you the information. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.